So, welcome to this little panel discussion. I know people have had a great lunch, and I thought we could wake you up with a little chicken dance. But let me start off with a small story. And there was this little rabbit that was walking around in the jungle and eating its bunch of carrots. And the deer asked, "So, can I have some of your wonderful orange carrots?" And the rabbit said, "No, these are blue carrots that I'm having." And the deer said, "No, these are orange carrots." And the rabbit said, "No, these are blue carrots." So the deer said, "Let me prove it to you." And he called the giraffe. And he said, "Hey, carrots are orange or carrots are blue?" And the giraffe said, "They are orange." The rabbit said, "No, these are blue colored carrots." Okay, so the giraffe called the buffalo, and the buffalo called someone else. And every time when everyone else is telling that these are orange carrots, the rabbit stuck to the story and said that these are blue carrots. And until they decided that they would go to the king of the jungle and ask him. So they walk up to the king of the jungle, the lion, and say, "Hey, orange carrots or blue carrots?" The king of the jungle asks, "What does everyone else say?" And everyone said orange, and the rabbit insisted, "No, these are blue carrots." What do you think the king of the jungle said? They're blue carrots. Don't argue. He's the one who's eating the carrots. It's blue. It can be whatever color he wants it to be. And that's your customer, right, at the end of the day, when you look at it. So let me start off by talking to you, Sven. You worked on corporate worlds, yeah, and you shifted from a corporate world to going into something that's your own, a startup that's talking to it. So do share something about your journey in ensuring the customer success and the rabbit eating the blue carrots.
Well, I would say the biggest learning that I have gained over the years is that everything you might know is just an assumption, especially in terms of customer needs, till you have validated it. And therefore, I would say in general, my attitude towards what I assume to know has changed. It is great to start with an assumption, but your next job have to validate this assumption as lean and as quick as possible. And therefore, I would say you have to go through this build, measure, lean feedback loop as lean and as quick as possible. And this is a way how you can actually gain invaluable knowledge, and this takes you a step ahead of your competitors long term.
Thank you. John, you are, you worked across multiple boundaries, multiple geographies, in fact, and being one of those first airline aggregator space, the giraffes and the buffaloes of the world, right? What do you think the impact is of different geographies on business needs?
Yeah, thank you very much. From our side, just a little bit of background is that we aggregate technology across the entire airport ecosystem. So we provided access control across 160 countries, and we've rolled out our services in over 80 countries through app and websites. So it's a definite challenge for us across those geographies because we're focusing, without actually owning any of the infrastructure, we're focusing on that single customer journey and trying to drive that stringency across each of those different geographies. But just to leverage what Sven was saying around that lean thinking and that lean mentality is trying to pull that and create that feedback loop as quickly as possible. Because when you start to bring in the digital servicing of customers in an analog world where they're physically checking into an airport lounge or taking a transport service, or you bring in the regulatory challenges around data restrictions, whether you're in the EU, India, Saudi, Russia, as we used to be, and across Africa as well, there is just significant complexity in terms of you trying to roll out that single customer journey. So I would say within each of those different elements, to Sven's point, I think it's a great one, is that lean feedback loop is absolutely imperative because you can really get caught up trying to roll out across 160 countries, let me tell you.
Yeah. Thank you for that, John. Anchal, just to continue on to what John said, you have a lot of experience working on corporate clients, cloud, data analytics. You also come with a lot of background on agile methodologies as well as the project management principles that are there. Um, how would you prioritize business needs over what you want to generate from a company's, sorry, the customer's needs? How would you prioritize those?
So thanks for having me, Chirag. So I think I totally reckon with the previous two comments, what they were telling around lean, agile, and what we say today in today's modern world. With my experience where I come from, I'm the mix of project management plus agile. So I have learned from both the schools. What is the underlying common denominator around this when we talk about customer need is about stakeholder. Who's the stakeholder? Who's the customer? It can be client, who is giving you a project, or you're creating a product. So when we talk about customer, there's always a sense of variableness in it. Because today customer can say, I need A, tomorrow then A can become A plus B, and tomorrow it can become totally C. So definitely there is a theory around it, how to manage it, and how to really realign them to the business needs and the business goals. From my perspective, I would say that totally depends on which kind of customers you are handling with. For example, you are going with the enterprise, you're going with the small and medium enterprise, or you're going with the startups. All three different personas are very different in terms of defining their customer needs and wants. You cannot say one size fit all. You need to have a right framework with all different sort of customers in front of you. I will elaborate it more in details in the further questions, but that's what my idea about managing the customer need as a variable around that.
Right, so the blue carrots can become green carrots
It could.
too.
Today it is blue. Tomorrow it can be orange. So you need to be, flexible around managing the needs, because we're talking about management and accommodating ourselves to align them, and it cannot be one line around it.
Jason, you come from a completely different background, right? Logistics technologies, typically technologies working in the logistics space, come with a lot more hardcore customer-driven approach where you have to work about solutioning to ensure that the package reaches the customer in the least amount of time while handling and juggling multiple things. How do you manage that?
So logistics is definitely complicated. There's no doubt about that. But from my experience, and I think one very important customer need, and it's the biggest challenge that we have, is to give the customer visibility. So as long as you give that customer visibility, they are happy, and that's been a challenge from the beginning. Like if you talk about 10 years back, 15 years back, we were not able to give that visibility to the customers because of a lot of manual process. It's a not completely, but a major human dependency is there when it comes to logistics. But for us, what we do and how we try to solve that issue is that we give as much visibility that we can to our customers. So when it comes to stock levels, they have a dashboard where they can see their inventory levels, orders dispatched, return orders, QC checks. So everything, we try to give that visibility to the customers through the dashboard. And that is the biggest want that we have to take care of. So yeah, visibility, I think, is our main focus, and giving that to the customer. And it's a continuous process also. So today the customer, you give them and you tell them, okay, fine, you can see all of this. Later on they come back and they say, okay, fine, we want to see this also. And then we have to provide that. And we do provide as much as we can. So yeah, visibility, I think it's very important when it comes to giving the solution to the customer.
So when you say visibility, Jason, let me just ask a follow-up question, right? At some point of time, you're looking to map what the customer needs are and what the business needs are. How do you actually create that mapping of the ecosystem to get that?
So for us, we have quite a lot of years of experience in the e-commerce domain. So we've come across major pain points already of customers. So we have most of those sorted out. So now what the challenge is the minor customizations that they require in terms of packaging, in terms of delivery options when it comes to last mile delivery. So those things, so the major operations is pretty much, it's standard, the major chunk. There are minor percentages that we have to fine tune and give it to the customer. But there are limitations also to the customization that we give. Because whatever solution you give to the customer, it has to be sustainable. It's supposed to be, it should come into that pricing point where they can sell their products and it should be scalable. So we give those solutions to the customers. And it takes time sometimes to explain to the customer, you know, like, this is how it can be done and this is the best way forward. Because you have a lot of e-commerce customers, sometimes they come and they say, okay, fine, you know, as soon as the order comes in, I want it delivered within 2 hours. You know, it's not a practical solution. Okay, fine, I'll do the delivery in 2 hours. Are you willing to pay this much for it because I have to send a separate vehicle for it? No. Okay, so this is the solution. This is what the market standards are. We can give you a little more than the market standards, but this is a solution that is scalable and sustainable. That is very important. And usually customers do understand that once you sit down. So customer engagement is also very important. You need to sit down, explain to them the whole thing. It's very different from the traditional logistics that we used to do like 15, 20 years ago. Like the customer comes with a requirement and you say, this is a solution, that's it. Like there's nothing more that I can do. Now, because of technology, we can do a lot of customization, but you know, not every need and wants of the customer can be catered to. It can be catered to, but are you willing to pay that much for it?
Very true. And you brought up an interesting point about what the customer needs and what the customer wants, right? So Sven, for you, what do you mean by what does a user need versus what does a user want?
I would say the user needs is more the focus about the real needs or what the user have to face, what kind of problems they have to face. And if you think about, or if you focus on the user wants, it's indicating that you're already thinking about a solution. And there's a nice quote from Henry Ford. If I would have asked the people, hey, what do you want? They would say, a quicker horse. And my question, do you see fast horses on the street?
Very true, very true. So when you talk to your customers, right, what do you think takes a priority for you? Is it needs or is it wants?
Yeah, if we take this analogy or if we use this car example, needs are, I want to move from point A to point B in the most convenient way. And wants is a quicker horse. And therefore I would say definitely user needs, because this is the space where innovation can happen, in my opinion, and where you can come up with new innovative ideas. And if you just limit it or focus on the user wants, or even ask the user, hey, what do you want? They can only answer based on their own knowledge. And therefore you cannot come up with new innovative ideas. And therefore definitely I would say user needs.
Yeah, I can't deny that fact. A lot of times I've seen that users actually want something, but they have no idea that they need something else to get it. Your horse analogy is exactly that, right? So I completely agree with you. Anchal, a question to you, right? When you get these user needs, how do you map them to revenue or margins or business needs that are there in a company?
Okay, so that's a very important and crucial aspect of understanding that actually we, when we talk about business scenarios, right? Sven mentioned that when we try about innovation, it comes from needs. But in today's modern situation, we know that if we don't cater to the wants, user experience will go for a toss and our business will be going for the toss as well. So definitely we need to balance out a balance between needs and wants. When it talks about how to really connect the dots between them, that totally depends on the segmentation, which I was speaking about in the very first question. That, for example, if I have a customer in front of me who is a startup, and I come as a consultant or I come as a person to help them out to really understand and managing their requirements around it. So I will follow the approach of which kind of product it is, what are their requirements about features, and then what kind of framework can I apply to it. For example, a startup does not need to go to the very big building blocks about prioritization and all that. So I simply will go back with the scenario of product prioritization metrics, which as a product owner can easily do, okay, in the form of value versus effort, for example. If I am more catering to the small and medium enterprise business, and I have a project in front of me that, hey, we have this whole wish list of my whole company which rolling out this ERP implementation, and this is the requirements. Again, going back to the board, I don't have to go through the simple product prioritization metrics there, because I need to really understand that what are my stakeholders, and then what kind of business sense they are making in terms of following the model, for example, cost of delay. I will ask them the right questions that, tell me, no problem, you have listed these requirements A, B, C, D. which of them are making sense of the business users requirement in terms of value, how time critical they are, and then thirdly, for example, I would say that what is the opportunity or risk if I don't do this? So if I just make the framework of these three parameters very simplistic manner, I can come up with the right kind of data decision points which can really table them up to prioritize in terms of some kind of numbering around that. And that will convince the people, not based on the relativity theory, but more on the factual theory. Coming to the enterprise segment, they're different animals. Okay, so definitely for them, we need to involve the right stakeholders from the top to make them understand the strategic planning tools, and then how do we map them to the requirements of the company. If they're developing a product for the customer segment, they need to go with the approach of a mini startup within the enterprise, or can they metamorphose themselves to really come out of the mindset of old technology-based solutions where business analysts used to create requirements and then designing and all that. So as we talked about, Swan talked about lean scenario, quick feedback loop, like he was talking about vision and the visibility giving to the customer. I think that is where I would guide the enterprise customer, that what kind of requirements they are making, and at the end of the day, needs are necessity and wants are luxury. So it need to make sensing to them as well. So that's what I would apply.
Right. It's interesting, you spoke about corporate clients and small clients, and over the years I have seen a lot of decision maker, when you talk at senior executive level with corporate clients, they have no idea what they need a lot of times. They just see another enterprise doing X and they're like, I want that. But do they even need that? That's a separate issue, and tackling those clients is a challenge. John, in fact, in your scenario, it's even more critical, right? Because you're not just talking to your partners, you're also talking to your suppliers who work with your end customers, a kind of a B2B2C model, right? How do you create an environment, when the clients, when your clients are actually not your users, but your end users will use whatever technology that you produce?
Yeah, that's a significant challenge for us because in our world, because we're aggregating the airport services, we then package that in apps and websites which the schemes purchase. So the likes of Visa and MasterCard, and specifically MasterCard here in the Middle East, we've just done a major migration with them. But the challenge then is you're packaging it for MasterCard, who then need to offer that app and services onto the issuers, who then offer it onto the end users. So it's a significant problem for us when we have these biases that are applied in the thinking of how you map out that customer journey. And one of the big touch points that we try and do is we try and almost speak to that end customer through a number of focus groups that we hold to try and identify what are some of their key pain points that they may be experiencing. We then try and tie those pain points back up through the chain to some of the pain points that the financial institution is facing or the actual issuer themselves, and then tied even further up to the scheme level. And then you almost try and push through on that priority. It creates a big challenge for us because we are a very fast-moving, pragmatic company that is almost held back through it almost becomes a little bit like governance in terms of the number of checks that you need to do. But you've got to keep that end user in mind at absolute all times. And a good example for us was where one of our partners was not interested in pushing our membership cards, our QR codes, which provide access into the infrastructure, into the wallet, into the Google Wallet or the Apple Wallet, because they wanted to drive engagement through the app, which is, of course, a very real point, right? You've got these schemes that are finally able to interact with customers that they've never had a relationship with. But through the user research, we pushed it into the app, and we've got far better engagement through and volume through of our services, even though you don't have that engagement touch points in the app. So it's just such a balance and a real challenge. So it's about making sure that the customer always has a voice, and it's about really getting to that voice when you're so far away from them.
That brings me to a point, right? Now, as an aggregator, you actually don't own the infra, as an example, right? Which means you have to influence your suppliers, okay, to ensure that they have the right infra, the right tech in space to do that. How do you influence this? Because this is purely a business need rather than what a customer need is.
Yeah, Exactly right. So for us, again, aggregating that airport space means that we don't own any of our airport lounges, which we have 1,300 airport lounges around the world. We provide transport to 160 countries to and from the airport as well, fast-track services across 70 countries in immigration and passport control. So we work across so many different suppliers. Within our fast-track services, for instance, we had to aggregate across 8 different integration types, and within that, try to bring in that single journey. So to take it back with that context to the question is, the challenge for us is that we try and bring in the simplicity from a customer journey perspective to our suppliers as well. Try and show them that we're not going to slow down their queue, that they can still force the customers through. Force is the wrong word, but get the customers through as quickly as possible. Obviously, you don't want to be creating queues in passport control and immigration because of your technology slowing down a process. So it's about providing that clarity in terms of the speed. It's about also in our dining space, because we aggregate over 2,000 restaurants across the world and airports as well. And it's about providing them with the information around the traffic that we're going to be driving as well within that space. But more than anything, it's about ensuring that they're on the journey and realize the simplicity with which we're trying to focus on a very fast customer journey.
Right. So, you just mentioned one of the business needs is ensuring there are the fast track way you don't have queues waiting at immigration or anything. Sven, question to you: like, if this is one of the requirements that his clients have, in your experience, what are the other different kind of business needs that you have seen?
That our business increase turnover and increase efficiency. This is actually our most use case. Just an example turnover is clear, but if you think about efficiency, if you have a company over 500 employees and each employee has to execute one process on a daily basis that takes 30 minutes, and if you validate this to an entire year with an average hourly rate of $35, you already come to the cost of your company is already 2,178,500 euros. Just for one process that takes 30 minutes time on a daily base. And think about it, if we just optimize this process or automate this process, and this is just a net amount or figure, if you think about the impact that suddenly the employee can think about another more valuable task or processes instead of just doing some repetitive tasks. Yeah, this is actually our most common
business need that you have. Excellent. Okay, from a business perspective, Jason, in the logistics space, how do you evaluate that the opportunity that's coming to you not only meets what your end customers wanted, but it also something from your business perspective, it's something that you need?
So whenever a customer comes to us and say, okay, this is a requirement, when we build a solution for them, the first thing, because I mentioned earlier, a lot of tasks in the logistics field is still human dependent. So the first thing we plan out is, can we automate the process? That is the first most priority thing. Can we automate the process, maximum eradicate human dependency? So once we can do that, okay, can I automate the process? That's one. Can I get valuable data from it? Can I get a customer feedback to improve those processes? And if that is done, and then again comes back to my previous point, sustainable and scalability. So I might have a customer who says, okay, fine, I have 10 orders per day. Can you do this? Yeah, for 10 orders per day, we can do it in the most customizable way. But after 1 month, if he has 100 orders per day or 200 or 500 orders a day, can I still stick to those processes? So whether that process is, I can automate it, can measure it, is it scalable? Those are the basic things that we look for. And then we give the solution to the customer. And there have been cases where customers have come and I could not automate most of the processes, so I politely decline and I say, this is not sustainable for you or for me, so I'm sorry, but I won't be able to do it. And we give other solutions, and it depends on the customer if he wants to take that or not.
The tough decision, right? When you have to say no to a customer.
But when you consider long-term goals, it is very important. For me personally, I'm in it for the long run, right? It's not like we want to bail out tomorrow. So if I'm providing a service today, I want to do that tomorrow and for the next 20, 30 years. So putting that in mind, we give the solution and then we accept, or most of the time we accept it. There are very few cases because, like I said, customer engagement. If I sit down with them and I explain to them, see, this is the ground reality of it and this is how it is practically possible, most of the time the customers understand. So that customer engagement and explaining to the customer, you really have to take that effort to do it.
I couldn't agree more with, and it sometimes takes a lot of effort and a long time just to explain to the customer that love your idea, but cannot be done. Yeah, that's one of the hardest parts.
And also most of the people, say e-commerce companies who come to us, their area of expertise, sourcing the products, marketing their website and all of that. The logistics part is my expertise, so they come to me for a solution and I give them the best solution that I think that works for them. So, and most of the people, customers, they do understand that, like, okay, fine, this is your domain, you know how it is done best, okay, fine, we'll go. And we have a lot of use cases. We have been doing it for the last 5 years now in my company. For the last 15 years, I have experience in the e-commerce logistics last mile delivery field also. So it's more of a consultancy, like this is the solution, this is how it is supposed to be done, and this is the best way forward. And yeah, it takes time to convince the customer, but in the end, if they are convinced, it's worth it. Rather than accepting what they are saying and, after 1 year down the line, having to deal with a mess.
Yeah, those conflicts actually cannot be avoided. I mean, you come with a certain expertise in your field and the customer agrees to you, that's fine. But sometimes there is pressure to take the job, right? And then you get into a conflict zone with the customer. So you can't say yes, you can't say no. It becomes a catch-22 situation. Anchal, how do you handle such catch-22 situations?
It's a difficult one always to answer. The catch-22 is the typical scenarios where you cannot take it inside and spit it out. So you have to be really, sometimes I would not say right word, manipulative, but we need to really understand the conflict zone. If I talk about, if we talk about two different circles and we are trying to establish an intersection between that conflict zone, that what is causing this catch-22? User is telling me I need this feature which can really allow me to do the single sign-on. Okay, we are social media players and you're not giving me Facebook login. What kind of product you're doing, right? Business is telling you're spending money on single sign-on, boy. Are you thinking that we don't have an integration channel with the payment gateway yet? Both are making sense. Which one to spit out? Because we have limited resources, limited economic. So in such situation, then we need to really go back to the drawing board and go to the basics. That what we talk about is what are the underlying motivations about each requirement, how they are going to map back to the economic sense of the strategic vision of a company or the short-term market capture we are trying to get, whatever. We need to really understand that underlying motivation from both the stakeholders. Thirdly, I would say that we need to remove and eradicate human biases. Human biases play a significant role in the untold fashion in coming to this catch-22 situation, because then it comes with sort of egoism, and then we know the product well, we know the industry well, we know the market well, that's another human bias. And third one, and the easiest one would be in that manner, is that bring them to a data-driven decision making, because without it, you're going to create enemies, nothing else. You are going to displease somebody, and in the long run is not going to favor you in some other form. As a consultant, as a solution provider, as a product owner, business analyst, whatever you are, that's where I think the three important pillars is around catch-22 is this, which I spoke about.
It's an interesting thing that you brought about internal bias, right? And a lot of times, in my experience, I've seen customers go back and, hey, I love the Java technology stack. I want to stick to the Java technology stack. I don't want to move to any other technology that's there. And that's an internal bias. John, how do you tackle such kind of internal bias?
Yeah, internal bias is a big problem in our company as well. And I think the key thing that we stick to is by trying to address the customer's needs more than anything. But it's almost to intentionally delay the solutioning. So as soon as somebody says something, don't jump into solution mode. And that's very, very difficult when you've got product and operations in the room, and we're all trying to get something done as quickly as possible because you've got a fire on your hands. So it's mission critical to ensure that you've unpacked all of the actual core needs, the base needs, before then trying to find a solution around that. And a great example in our world was in rolling out our fast track service, our aggregated fast track service through immigration and passport control across 70 countries. We came into the Latin American markets thinking we really knew what we were doing. Here we are, we've done 8 integrations, we've got 70 countries, it's in over 20 languages, we're coming in as the experts. And what we actually found was we needed to tear up our fast-track implementation for the Brazil rollout with Visa. And what we have done now is instead of going through a more complicated booking journey, we literally have a credit card which you tap and you immediately go through, which is only possible in that place because we also put down our infrastructure. And it's a really, really good example of where we tore up what we knew. We started with the end customer, and the success of that is now it is the biggest auxiliary benefits that Visa Brazil offers currently. And it's just a really good example of where, even though you may think you're an expert, sometimes you need to tear it up.
Yeah. This is part of internal bias, right? But we've often seen that customers also have bias. Yeah, they want things to be done in a specific way. Of late, I've been seeing for the last 5 years, there's a trend, everything has to be agile. Okay, you cannot work in any other kind of a project management scenario. Agile is everything. So, Sven, question to you is, what are the common mistakes and sometimes, what I would call false expectations of the customers?
Yeah, actually, I totally agree what you have said, because the common mistakes. Hey, I have 20 years of expertise plus in this specific industry, and I exactly know what my customer needs. I would say this is a common mistake. And before you try to answer the question of how, I would say the most important thing is that you need to start with the right question. You need to focus initially on the what we're trying to achieve, what the goals are, what kind of challenge we have to face. And then we, with our clients, collectively try to challenge the idea. We try to answer this question of what, and then we come to the how. Because there's a nice quote from Albert Einstein: if I would have 60 minutes to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and just 5 minutes thinking about the how. And this is, basically the same what we, or how we treat the requests from our clients. And if we have answered collectively the answer of what, then we come to the how. And here it's so crucial that you shift your perspective. The customer needs to be in the center now. You need to decide from outside in instead from inside out. It's, I have the expertise and I know exactly what the customer wants. No, you need to put the customer into the center and decide from outside in. And if you have answered these both questions, first the what and then the how, it's easier to design a solution that aligns both the business needs and the customer needs.
One of the important things that I think, it's the what and the how, but if you also know why the customer wants to do the change, right? That plays a very critical role in deciding what it is there. And at the end of the day, any customer, whether you have a B2C customer, a B2B2C customer, or a direct customer, a lot of priorities come in from the customer. So, Anchal, what's the framework that you use for prioritization of the needs that come in?
So a lot of frameworks exist today. Again, we use depends on, again, the situation and the customer base. For example, RICE, where we talk about situation where what is the response impact, and then the confidence level, okay, and then basically the efforts involved in that. What were the requirements we are being given? Another option would be the value versus effort, easiest one. Maslow, must have, should have, and then would have and won't do, for example. Weighted shortage of first in the scaled agile methodology, which talk about cost of delays. If you really quantify one thing, do it as a measure of cost of delay. use that. Or there's a different story mapping of options that are in the agile world, in the product management. And there are quite a few other again, but again, the predominantly underlying idea behind everything is that, going back to your point, what just you made, I 100% agree with you. Ask the question in 3 reverse gear. Start from why, go to what, and then go to how. Eventually, you will reach to a point easily with these answers that why you want to really achieve this requirement. If you have really clarity around in terms of cost of delay or effort versus and the things, then you will get it. Otherwise, last one, don't lose your economic sense of doing anything. Because with the human biases, with the biases all around we are living with, we sometimes forget about economic sense of, think continuously about economic sense when you are building something, when you're giving solutions, because none of the businesses going to work and give you free, right? Everybody wants money as a profit, as a revenue at the end of the day. So keep that always in mind and use this right framework depending on your situation. I would not recommend in one versus other, but depends and totally selected based on your situation around what you are in.
Okay. Thank you, Anchal. So let's say the customer, has a why, and the customer knows what he wants. The how part is kind of left to you, right? How you would execute it. But even after having all these needs, and knowing today's customers, they are more technologically aware. Jason, how do you say very politely no to the customer?
Okay, so the no obviously just doesn't come like a blatant no, right? You have to give your reasons for it. And one thing which Anchal explained, data. So if you have the data and you can back what you're saying and the reasoning with data, no one can deny it, right? If you're making statements and you say, okay, no, it's because of this, because of that, of course, like, it's always up for debate. When you have data to back up your solutions, because for me, when I partner with a customer, especially an e-commerce company, my success also depends on their success, right? So if they have more orders, more order fulfillment, more shipments out for delivery, we both grow together, right? So when they come to me for a logistics solution, like we give, okay, fine, like we understand your business, we've done it before, or maybe we have not done it before, we've analyzed what your requirements are. This is the most ideal way forward. And I'm same like how I said before, most customers do understand, like if you explain it with the right reason, giving them data saying like this is a more sustainable way to move forward, they understand. And that's what I said, like, customer engagement, you have to engage with them. When I say customer engagement, that doesn't mean like I'm continuously giving them only my opinions. It is taking their feedback, also understanding what their requirement is, and packaging it as a solution to them which works for their business. And yeah, if the customer success, and for us also, it is not a one-time thing, right? Like if I have a contract with a customer, it is continuous. Like I need to continuously improve on my processes, make sure their costs also go down, make it efficient enough for them. Processes should be faster. So it's a continuous process, and both the customer and us, we learn at the same way. And yeah, depending on the customers, we always have different experiences. But like I said, that feedback should be there. You have to engage and give them that data to back up your solutions.
So we add it up as of saying that say no, but say it beautifully. So that way you cannot just lose the customer by saying no around that, for example.
Right. See, customer success at the end of the day, right, is a journey. It's not a goal. You can never be successful with one customer. There are times when you have to say no very politely, diplomatically. But at times you have to flip the switch and take a hit. Probably it's a hit on your revenue or on your margin or whatever. Sven, have you had any experience dealing with tough customers, but just for the sake of customer success and customer retention or something, have you taken decisions to take a hit on profit, margins, revenue, whatever other business needs?
Yeah. Well, I would say one of our success factors are that we don't execute blindly the idea. This is very important because we always try to consult the customers and try to collectively answer the question, hey, why do we need to build your idea? What is going to change if we implement this idea or this application? And the most customers, as you already said, understand this and are happy that they have experts who assist and how to build application or how to implement an application that ensures a maximum output. But sometimes I have to protect the company and even the client that they spend a lot of money without an added value. Because especially in Germany, sometimes potential clients reach out to you and say, hey, we want to build this application. And if you try to say, okay, but what is the goal, what the challenge we need to face? No worries, just build this application. We want you to just blindly execute this. And then I need to say, no, most probably I have the feeling that we are not the right partner for you because I want to protect the potential customer, that they spend money for an application that most probably is going to fail. And I need to protect us as a company because if you want to have sustainable success, we need satisfied customers. And most probably if the idea is going to fail, then they are not satisfied. And yeah, therefore.
Yeah. See, the thing with the customers being more knowledgeable, right? They understand what the physical world is and what the physical world relationships are. And then they want to transfer the physical world into a virtual tech world that's there. And a lot of time is UI, UX, as we call it in the tech space, right? So, John, how do you manage the UX part of it and understanding the business needs within your organization? Because you're one step away from your end user, right? How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's there's really no easy answer to it because also our UX needs can be digital and analog. In the sense that you've got the digital apps, but your customer is interacting with your app in an analog world. They're checking into a lounge. They're taking a transport ride. There is no easy answer. Again, the thing that we always come back to is that the customer has a need or a job to be done. And for us, it's about mapping out as fewer steps required to reach the outcome that the customer is trying to reach. And we focus on that very, very, very intentionally. So to be honest, the short answer is that's how we try and navigate through this UX world on either side. And I would also say one of the other touch points and one of the other things that we battle with is trying to balance hard requirements that can come from the clients, which break the UX journeys. So for instance, we've got big issues around active card checks to ensure that the customer whom the benefit is given is actually the customer who is actually the customer itself. So inevitably you go through a number of checks which break the UX journey in terms of completing that need. So there is just no easy way to answer it, and it's a very delicate balance, but it's just about fundamentally doing your very best to cut down those steps as quickly and as much as possible.
Thank you, John. One last question, and just going to keep it open to all of you. Given the current situation worldwide, be it economic, okay, where we have heard so much about reducing revenues, heard so much about reducing margins, or the other flip side to it is the security, compliances, things that come up, GDPR as an example, right? A lot of things, these external factors that impact business needs and customer needs both. So just open it up. One last question, if someone can tell, how do you tackle situations like this? Anyone want to take that?
Okay, so
I mean, maybe we share it. For me, it's an absolute nightmare because you're trying to just juggle India's data hosting with also their payment gateway compliance. With then you're looking at Saudi data hosting, you're looking at the EU, you're looking at the US, you've got Canada coming into that, the natural contradictions that exist between the US and the EU, specifically around the fact that the NSA can get access to data. We're a Chinese company, the Chinese government can get access to data and anything we store there, which then contradicts other legislation that we have. It is an absolute minefield. We have so many data centers all over the world and pseudonymized just about anything we can touch, which is sort of anonymizing the customer ID. So it's for us it's a nightmare. It's like riding on a pirate ship through shark and rock infested waters.
Actually, you were telling.
So again, I totally understand from where he's coming from, and we live this experiences ourselves as an industry owners, but we need to also understand that why there is all happening, right? Because we don't want ourselves in a position where, depends on the context again, which is an e-commerce solution, or is it which is a point-based solution, or we're talking about a health app, or is a finance payment solution. Depending on the situation, nobody in this, I think in this room, nobody would like to compromise on their own data, right? When we say no problem, I can easily find out how much amount is in your bank. Who's comfortable with it? We say, okay, we know that, which disease you are going through, which chronic disease you have. Is anybody comfortable about it? No. So definitely there will be a situation with the human because we are going so fast in the digital age, where everything is coming from paper-based to digital age. And of course, there is no boundary in digital. We are going way and way beyond. How to make it up, it's very important. So looking at what I see from where is, whenever you get a project or as a product to develop, always try to put end in the first game. Put end in your first mind. What is your end game of this solution or product? Does it come with functional requirement? Yes, it would be. Are there any non-functional requirement associated with it? Non-functional requirement, I would say security requirements or performance requirements with what we talk about. So if the security requirement is you're developing an application or solution for a claims industry, for insurance, for example, or you're developing an application which can be rolled out in border control in airports, is it really a second mind for anybody to give a thought about security? Of course. Everybody has to. So that depends on context, that what business you are in, but put your final end game into the first position when you define the scope and try to evolve as much as early as possible. Don't put security at the end, put it to the left shift, bring it to the front, and ask the security people to help you out to innovate, not to protect you and restrict you from innovation.
That's the reason Marvel put Avenger Endgame as the end of phase 1. Questions from the audience, we happy to answer. None? I take it then we have been successful. Thank you so much. On point. Thank you so much, Jason, John, Anchal, Sven. Thank you so much for helping us out.
Thanks for being such a lovely moderator.
Thanks, Chirag, for moderating.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chirag.
Thank you.